So one of the toughest things about Camden is the chronic shortfall in the budget, which means that the city depends on the state for aid. As mayor, you're in a tough spot if the state decides to cut funds. How would you respond to a cut in state funding? And are there specific programs you would target to eliminate?
Yeah, I mean, I really would have to. Well, one to that point, I fully expect the state is going to cut funds in the next administration. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. The state's probably going to be $10 to $15 billion in debt because of like the Economic Development Authority and their folly, and you know, this the city not. I mean, not the city. The governor not funding pensions, and the charter school expansion across the state. So I'm going to have, if I win, I'm going to have all summer to really disaggregate the city budget to kind of figure that out. I think the city budget is kind of lean to begin with, so I don't know where you end up cutting. I think that I think that again, when I start talking about residential housing and trying to bring to revamp the residential housing market, if you're getting people to take back mortgages, by virtue of turning those houses over, you're generating more revenue for the city. But I mean, that's something that, I'm going to have to take a fine tooth comb and probably understand over the course of the summer. And I'll probably have to, if I win, on Tuesday, I think, it's a pretty good chance that I'll win in November. And once you win in November, you kind of have you have the ability to go to the budget director and say, okay, what's the deal? Because I mean, you get inaugurated in January, the state budget and the budget figures are probably going to come out to the municipalities probably in March or April for the budget that's going to be approved in June. I mean, it's a short window to figure out what you can do. Yeah, so I'd have to look at the budget and figure that out. It's a good question, but it's pretty tough to kind of guesstimate at this point.
Of course. And the other piece of this is what can be done over the stretch of your potential administration to reduce that chronic budget's shortfall so that you're not as dependent on the state.
Well, I think that, and I know we wanted to get into this, but I think that, like, again, residential housing would help us. I think if I could do anything that just took 25% of the current abandoned house inventory out of circulation, that would help. I think that the city of Camden is most certainly going to have to, at some point, address property taxes in some way. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of what's going on with the property taxes in Camden and across the state. There are a lot of people that don't understand how low their property taxes are in Camden relative to other municipalities. I mean, for most houses in Camden, and I'm not recommending this, but for most houses in Camden, you could probably quintuple the property taxes. You could quintuple my property taxes, and it's still less than what I would pay for a comparable sized house in Collinswood. So I think that honestly, the city's going to have to look at raising property taxes because there's been a lot of maneuvering that's been done. And all these things are there. I just think that people haven't paid attention to what's been going on. So earlier this year, the city, there was a hanger on people's door that basically was talking about the property tax assessments. The property tax assessments in Camden is actually going to be run by the county, which makes no sense. Of course, because the city and county government is dysfunctional, they never followed through with it. I think they did desk audits of some of the houses. So some people So everybody got this notice that our property tax, our properties are going to be reassessed. The county never came around and did it. They just went and looked at certain houses and said, well, this should be more. So then they reassessed the houses. I mean, and then they've been playing around with the property tax rates and the values of the houses. So there's a lot of murky stuff that's been going on there. But you're going to have to be transparent about it. And I mean, that's a real issue on the table. And lastly, I would say we're going to have to work with the state legislature to start a wage tax. I mean, when you look at it, the cities that are most hurt by not having a wage tax are the cities and municipalities in the state of New Jersey that have these economic development authority, economic development plans that are killing us. So, like I've been on record as saying this before, hey, if you're in the city of Camden, everybody pays a wage tax. If you work in the city of Camden, you pay a wage tax. If you own a house in the city of Camden, you will get that wage tax credit against your property taxes. And that could be a way to incentivize people to buy homes in Camden. I'm still trying to think about how I would address renters, because, if you rent and you work in the city of Camden, you're kind of getting hit. But, I don't know, that might be enough of an incentive to get people to at least buy a house in the city of Camden. So, but I think all those things are going to have to be on the table. The city, the last time I checked, I think the city spends about $180 million and it makes about $160 million. And when you start to trace all the things that people really, really hate in the city of Camden, it traces back to that budget gap. You don't like the county police? Well, they use that gap to basically say the county should pay for the police. Now, as a resident, what do you want to do? Do you want to close the gap? Or do you want to have the state come in and basically keep telling us what they're going to want to do? You hate the way the school district is constructed? Well, that started because of that budget gap. The mayor signed the Mirror Act to basically close that budget gap, and in the process, she gave the school district away, but had nothing to do with the budget. Now, as a resident, what do you want to do? Do you want to close the gap? Or do you want to still have the state take control or be in control, or you want to be in this position where we always have to go back and beg for money for the services that we need, and we got to give up what we don't want to give up? You don't like the riverfront? Well, riverfront is there because they need to close that gap. That's why they put a prison on prime real estate property in the city of Camden. So at a certain point, I know I'm getting a little elevated, but I feel like nobody has really been honest with people and taken the time to explain these issues to people. Camden people are treated like we're unreasonable animals that nobody can explain anything to. And what I found is if you take the time to explain to people what's really going on, they can understand the decision, and most importantly, they can make decisions based on that, and they can do what they need to do for their life. So